Hello everybody, Smirk is here again. So today I'm gonna talk about a conversation that I had with a veteran of the Iraq wars. So I pretty much always thought that soldiers that come back from a war are pretty much treated like shit. I tweeted and put a message on Facebook for some help, and a relative of mine responded and helped me out with some questions. He shall remain anonymous. So, here goes. So like I said, this person is a veteran from the Iraq wars, and I said, I feel very awkward asking all these questions since I'm a civilian and all. Is it cool to ask you a bunch of questions about what happens when soldiers come back from the war? He told me he could share and told me that it is hard for a lot of soldiers to share with civilians. And I guess I can understand that. I have a real life friend who is a veteran. Ask him questions every now and then, and usually he'll give me an answer. Sometimes it's kind of hard to imagine the stuff soldiers go through. But so yeah, my relative said he feels like a lot of veterans fall through the cracks because they don't follow through with the VA. When they get back from war, they get asked a lot of questions regarding their mental health. But a lot of soldiers lie so they can get home to see their families. And you don't want to sound crazy. So, it is me again. Even though I think that in war you see a lot of crazy shit. It's too bad that there's this stigma on sounding crazy. It's like, to quote Full Metal Jacket, you've been in a world of shit. But I guess you are one of the lucky ones if you don't see a lot of crazy shit when you are in a war. He also told me there's a bunch of benefits for veterans that you get told about when you get back. Now, I thought that this is something you would have to look up for yourself. But he told me it's thrown at you when you first get back and your head is more at going to your family and or friends. So you don't really want to deal with that stuff at the moment. So yeah, I'm guessing that it's kind of hard to retain that sort of info, especially when you get back and all you really want to do is go home. So I asked, is there any follow-up done by the VA though? Or would you have to go there on your own accord? And he told me yes and no. When any soldier comes back from war, he or she has 5 years free VA medical. It is up to them to go to a VA or DAV and other agencies to get any disability. There is also a lot of fake claims, so they have to figure that out also. In the US, a lot of doctors will have you get a lot of tests because insurance pays for a lot of it. But the VA doesn't like to do a lot of expensive tests because of budgeting. So you have to be on the doctor's ass if something is bothering you. He has a pretty good doctor with the VA, but you have to plan on making an appointment 3 months in advance. And my next question was, well, what about PTSD? And he said, I believe part of the problem with PTSD in soldiers is you have these 18-year-old, 20, 21-year-old young men and women that were not really in charge of anything back in the States, and their life is just kind of numb. But then they are deployed and their life is meaningful. And their life is meaningful and important, and they're in charge of a lot of things. They come back to the States and work at a fast food restaurant, a pet store, a bike shop, places where they feel like there's no meaning for their life or job, and they get really depressed. There's no feeling of connection for them. Also, when you're deployed, you are put in situations where your adrenaline is through the roof. It is very little things back in the States they can get to that level in the body. And the body misses it and needs it. Or I am lucky and I have a job that gives me both the adrenaline and brotherhood in the fire service. It's kind of like the drug ecstasy. Once your body feels such great emotion, it's hard to come back and get something that feels the same way. That is why doctors are now experimenting with ecstasy and PTSD. So, yeah. I have also heard good stories about PTSD and the use of ecstasy or other psychedelics a while back. About taking those drugs under medical supervision and trying to give some of the trauma that soldier accumulated a better place in their heads so they are bothered by it a bit less. So I asked about some of the difficulties soldiers face, like when they are back. And I've heard some of these things before from my IRL friend as well. Things like driving can be difficult to adjust to. People passing by in cars. Out of the blue, loud noises can make them jumpy. Crowded buildings and crowded places can be difficult as well. And some of the things that normal people think are funny, they absolutely don't think it's funny, but laugh it off. I guess other people could make a big deal out of it. I don't really know. I'm also guessing a lot of soldiers, police officers and firefighters have this thing called situational awareness, while civilians may call it a little paranoid. Looking around corners, look around cars, look for all the exits and size everybody up. And he also said, sometimes soldiers feel like no one wants to hire them because they think that if you are a soldier you must have PTSD or think you might go on deployment again. On the PTSD they are probably right, but most soldiers function just fine. So I said, yeah, I think there are a lot of soldiers that would have some form or another, but some just deal with it better than others, I guess. The friend I play games with just saw it as any other job, just following orders. Whether it was get me a cup of coffee or be here at this time at this place and kill that dude. Another friend of mine came back, smoked a lot of pot to cope with things he had to do in the war, and said his stress levels never went down. And I guess this has to do with the adrenaline thing that he talked about earlier. So where I would get stressed is kind of like a normal person's stress, but when he hit my point of stress, he wasn't bothered by it yet. But last I heard, he is learning how to detect stress better to better deal with it. But I must say though, I thought that it would be the other way around. A relative said most soldiers function well. I would have thought that most soldiers had a lot of difficulties adjusting to civilian life. Maybe also because of the stigma war veteran equals PTSD. So he told me, I would say function well at a job versus adjusting to civilian life is two different things. Some veterans can have a job and do great, but when they come home and they have nothing on their hands or to distract their mind, their PTSD might kick in. So I said, that's kind of interesting. Is it like at work you have stuff to keep you busy and at home maybe not so much, kind of a thing? And he said, for sure. I keep myself busy with mountain biking, rock climbing, trail building and playing video games. But I noticed that video games can make me aggressive and depressed, so I have to time myself on game. About religion. He told me religion might cause a brain fuck as well. You get trained as a killer, and if you are in that position, you might also have to kill someone. Then come back and face a bit of backlash because their faith doesn't allow killing. And then you have to deal with that as well. So I asked him, do you think the system could use some improvements? And if so, what would they be? He said the military realizes that they do have a problem. An example, I was told that if you call the VA suicide hotline, only 1/3 of the calls actually connects you to a real person that can help you out. If that's the case, maybe they should set up a veterans helping on veterans program for the other 2/3 and get connected to other veterans. I can help talk to them. As to what I think might be improvements, and well, like I said, I'm a civilian. I've never had any soldier training or whatever, but I thought maybe it's better to leave the asking a bunch of questions about a soldier's mental health and giving the information about veteran benefits to maybe a week after they come back from deployment, so they might better retain the information and might open up a little bit more, since they've seen they really want to go to their family, and once they've done it, maybe they'll be also be a little bit more honest about the questions for their mental health. Now, in closing, I don't have a patriotic bone in my body. I didn't care much for becoming a soldier. I do have the greatest respect for these people who become soldiers and fight for what they believe to be the right thing to do, and so I wouldn't have to. And it is appalling to see that we are not helping these veterans enough once they come home. I think too many veterans still fall through the cracks, become homeless, isolated, and that kind of thing. And I wish there was something more that we could do for them. Just don't know a whole lot of solutions at this point in time. Anyways, this was my video. Hope you liked it. Comments, as always, are welcome. Like, share, subscribe. Have a good one, and catch y'all next time.